How to identify the Mirage 3 and 5, and the 5 is a later version of the Mirage 3, so there's more similarities than differences between these two planes from a recognition standpoint. The Mirage 3 first flew in 1956, while the Mirage 5, which is a later version of the Mirage 3, basically flew in the latter half of the 1960s. Over 1,000 of these planes were produced and sold around the world, and today a handful of nations are still using them, with Pakistan being the biggest current operator. Looking at the specifications, we can see that the length for the Mirage 3 is approximately 49 feet 3 inches, and for the Mirage 5 it's 51 feet or 15.5 meters. The length of the nose is one of the biggest differentiating factors with these two aircraft. Wingspan is approximately 27 feet, height 14 feet 9 inches, maximum takeoff weight is around 30,000 pounds. Now granted, this here is mainly for the Mirage 3. Maximum speed 1,460 miles an hour or 2,350 kilometers. Combat range approximately 746 miles or 1,200 k's. Surface ceiling 56,000 feet or 17,000 meters. Armament consists of, but is not limited to, guns, 2 internal 30mm cannon, rockets such as 68mm rockets, air-to-air missiles such as the AIM-9 Sidewinder or Matra, and of course there are others as well. And up to 8,500 pounds of bombs can be carried. This diagram here is worth looking at. It shows the delta wing configuration of the Mirage 3 and 5. Also you'll notice it's low mounted, the large tail, the nose, single engine, but we'll get more into this in the following pictures. So this aircraft has a low mounted delta wing with narrow, almost pointed wingtips, as we can see here, with these two Mirage 3s here that used to be in service with the Australian Air Force. As a side note, a lot of the Australian Mirages were eventually sold to Pakistan, which still flies the type. And while in this picture here we do see a two-seat version of the Mirage 3, generally speaking the Mirage 3 and Mirage 5 are a single-seat aircraft. It just so happens in this picture we see a two-seat trainer aircraft flying with a single seat. And in case you can't quite make it out, the single-seat aircraft is the one behind the first aircraft. It is the second aircraft in this picture. So these aircraft have a single engine, they have a semicircular or D-shaped air intake, which are mounted at the rear and slightly below the cockpit, but above the wing. We can also see that those triangular shock cones, which are mounted inside the intakes. So the Mirage 5 has a narrower, longer nose than the Mirage 3, as we can see in these two photos here. The Mirage 3 in the top picture has a shorter, rounder, fatter nose, while the Mirage 5 in the lower picture has a longer, thinner nose. The fuselage of this aircraft is long, slender, and tubular with a pointed nose, and of course it has that stepped cockpit. Now you'll also see here, you'll see those canards. There are some versions of the Mirages that have canards. For the most part those canards aren't there. You'll see with the Swiss Mirage 3 DSs, I believe they all have canards. But for the most part, the Mirage 3 and the Mirage 5 do not have canards. We can see here the tail is large, swept back and tapered with a square tip. You'll also see in that top photo that the aircraft has a step at the bottom of the fin, while in the second photo of the Australian Air Force Mirage, that step is not there. So it will be there on some aircraft, not on others. Kind of like the same with the MiG-23 for that matter. So I don't use that as an identifying feature when it comes to this aircraft. You'll also notice in this second picture, you get a really good look at that single exhaust. I believe this is a fairly old photo of a French Mirage 5. As you can see, it's got fuel tanks on there. It looks like it may also have a couple of AAMs under the wings. Let's take a look at it. Notice the identification features. I'm not going to spend too much time on them, but there are a couple of sub-variants I'd like to mention, and that is the Mirage 50, which you see here, and then the Israeli IAI Kafir, which you see here. Both of these aircraft are worth mentioning, as they are both derived from the 3 and 5. The Mirage 50 did not sell overly well overseas, but it is still in use today. The Mirage 50, you can identify it with the nose being longer than either the Mirage 3 or 5. That nose is also rounder, and it also looks slightly more streamlined and sharper or pointier than that of either the Mirage 3 or the Mirage 5. The Israeli-built Kafir is a later version too, and you can identify that when you look at the nose on the Kafir, it's kind of more triangular at the very tip, and you'll also see at the tail, with the tail fin on the Kafir, you'll see that long foot at the bottom, which really gives it away. And finally, do not confuse the Mirage 3 or 5 with the Mirage 2000 or the Rafale. There is another variant of this aircraft, which is the Mirage 50, which I haven't gone into, which also has an even longer nose and a slightly rounder nose. But nevertheless, we haven't gone into it. Anyway, in this picture here, you can see a Pakistani Air Force Mirage 3 flying with an F-18 and 2 F-16s. I believe this photo here is taken from an exercise over in Jordan. And on that note, that's it, and good night.